Hello, this is a League Start guide for my Volatile Dead Spellslinger Elementalist. This build was the most fun I have had in PoE in years. It is one button, auto-targeting, off-screen clearing, and just a fantastic all-around character built for all content. And in this video I'll go over all the mechanics of the build, gear, gems, and a passive tree, including a full written guide with act-by-act leveling, which I will link below. I'll now go into a brief overview of the mechanics of the build. The core of the build is Spellslinger, which will trigger any linked spells when you attack with a wand skill. This then reserves mana based on the cost and reservation multipliers of your supports. Spellslinger functions very similarly to Cast on Crit, where you have breakpoints based on your total cooldown reduction and your attack speed. However, it is much more forgiving than Cast on Crit because of Frenzy linked with barrage support. Now, normally, if I just turn on the Spellslingers here and then attack and hold it down, you can see it's not going to have like a perfect cast time. I'm clearly attacking and it's missing some casts. But if you slot in barrage support, it actually smooths out the curve of your breakpoints that you need. That is because when you attack with Frenzy, it releases a line of projectiles, and each time a projectile goes out, it attempts to trigger your Spellslingers. Our main skill is Volatile Dead. Corpses near the targeted location explode, dealing damage in a small area, creating an orb which moves towards nearby enemies before dealing spell damage in a larger area. The explosion of the corpse is not affected by modifiers to spell damage and cannot be reflected. We do not care about the corpse damage at all here. We are focused entirely on the damage of the balls, but the skill requires corpses. That is where Desecrate comes into play, along with Spellslinger support on both, which will automatically trigger any spell linked to it when you use a wand attack skill, which for us is Frenzy. So if I just activate our Volatile Dead Spellslinger here, you see that nothing will happen. Vice versa, if I activate our other Spellslinger setup with Desecrate, it will then lay corpses on the ground, which allows our Volatile Dead to proc. Just by attacking with Frenzy, you automatically create all this, and as you see, they create all these little balls, which will then go and heat seek out to enemies and explode. This combination takes us from what would normally be a 2-button playstyle to a nice, smooth 1-button playstyle. Move around the map, right-click, and that's it. I want to briefly talk about the Runegraft of Time, something that I feel like a lot of people have looked over and why it is so good for Spellslinger. Runegraft of Time says 20% chance for skills not to consume a cooldown on use. Now this is incredibly good because every single time you cast Frenzy with Barrage, each projectile leaving your character is going to attempt to cast Spellslinger. So when you do hit that 20% chance to skip cooldowns, your first little bolt of Frenzy will proc, then it'll skip the cooldown, and immediately the second bolt of Frenzy will immediately trigger your Spellslinger again. When that does proc, it's going to end up looking something like this, where you spawn twice as many balls, and it is a huge more multiplier to your DPS. As for our gem setups, we are using Spellslinger, linked with Volatile Dead, Inspiration, Fire Penetration, Spell Cascade, and Immolate. Frenzy, linked with Combustion, Faster Attacks, Barrage. Spellslinger, Desecrate, Spell Cascade, with a Lightning Golem anywhere. A Flesh and Stone anywhere, with a Stone Golem anywhere, and a Flame Golem anywhere. Shield Charge, linked with Faster Attacks, Flammability anywhere, and Chaos Golem anywhere, along with Tempest Shield, Wave of Conviction, and Frost Blink, all of which can go anywhere. So popping over into the POB here real quick, I'm going to go over a couple things. I played this build the last patch, I'm going to League Start this patch, and I basically fleshed it out into a pretty high-end spot in the end game without going too crazy on the money. There's two different build variants that you're going to see in here. There is a CI variant that starts off here, and then there is a low life variant which starts off here. I think I'm going to go the CI route this time. I went to low life last patch, and we'll see if we can push that a little bit farther. All configs in this POB have accounted for the global int nerf, which was insanely bizarre, very weird, and also the elementalist golem effect nerfs, 50% coming from Liege of the Primordial, and then 20% coming off of each primordial bond that I have here. So starting off in the T16 setup, and then for our gear in the T16 setup, this is your day one absolute minimum, like 1 to 2 stat items. You can just basically throw on anything you have that has life and res on it, preferably on energy shield bases. You want to grab yourself a Demon's Horn early on with a Deafening Essence of Anger by T16s, and hopefully just roll into literally anything. Spell damage, a +1, fire damage, just any acceptable stat. Side note, early on we are not crit, we are elemental overload, so you do want to have like one roll of spell crit somewhere on a shield, on the wand. Inspiration support will usually cover you, but if not, if you can't get any of that, then consider taking a spell crit node just to make sure your EO is proccing reliably. As for we move into mid game, we pick up our clusters. Just a couple clusters, one for zealotry mana reservation efficiency. We have just some jewels with anything, increased damage, life, even res, anything that you can find. You want to pick up a Runegraft of Time as soon as you can. These are usually extremely cheap. You just pick one up when you can get it and when they become available. As well as a Runegraft of the Fortress, you know, typical caster stuff. We start moving into more block. We start getting close to block cap at this point. And the biggest swap is when we get into crit. Do not go crit on this build until you have a Sandstorm Visage. Okay, these were actually incredibly cheap last patch. Didn't see them go over 3 div, basically, the entire, from the beginning to the end. Basically didn't exit 3 div for forever. So these are extremely affordable, but you do not want to go crit before you have this helmet. It's going to be your first major purchase. Okay, at this point we know we pick up like a fractured wand with either fractured crit chance for the Sandstorm Visage, fractured something, fractured spell damage, roll with deafening angers preferably actually, and just get one of these stats fractured and then roll with deafening angers, craft on the rest of it. This patch we're probably going to be rolling with a Polaric Devastation because we lost the Covered in Ash from the graphs. So this kind of just makes up for that. It's not necessary. It's not like it's a ton more damage, you know, 14% more damage. It's a good ring to use. It's, you know, its stats are okay. And so you can pick up one of these if they are nice and cheap. That'll probably be worth it. That's what I'm planning to do. Early on, you know, we have none of these are Cinder Swallow is not enabled or anything. You know, you can tick that on and whatnot. And yeah. And once you get into here, though, after you go to the crit swap step 1, you get into 2 options. You can either start looking towards CI, okay, or you can start looking towards low life, okay. Low life is going to be more damage, but you're going to be less tanky because you're going to be vulnerable to chaos damage. This also puts you a little bit tighter on gear slots this patch because you need your chaos res. Now, last patch, this was not a problem at all because the Breach tree was pouring out so many easy, insane rares that you could pretty much just get natural chaos cap for super cheap. Where, you know, we're talking you getting triple res, 30% movement speed boots with T1 life for under a divine, right? So yeah, we don't know what rare prices are going to be looking like this patch because they did mention that they're nerfing the global modifier tier weighting on the tree from King's March and from gambling. So we don't know what the prices on rares are going to be this patch, but you know, keep that in mind. So I think I'm probably going to look towards more of the CI route myself. But going from here, you know, all you have to do is pick a path: low life, more offense; CI, more defense. Pick one and then follow that. They're labeled, you know, CI or low life. If you're going CI, you know, you're going to start ending up here, you know. And then if you're going low life, you end up here. And you just keep building it out. I have step by step. I've made it as simple as possible. The note section is extremely extensive. Please read them. Also, just want to quickly explain my configs in here. Cap your res, cap your resistances, obviously. Shaper of Flames is calculated in the custom modifiers because if you remove this and you go to Shaper of Flames, it doesn't actually move your Fizz max hit, when in reality it obviously does, because 40% of enemies' physical damage is being converted to fire. As you can see on the left hand side, it affects the effective hit pool for some reason, but not your Fizz max hit. So the reason this is in here is because it correctly moves your Fizz max hit as it should. Same thing happens with Pyro Shock Clasp. That's why that's counted in here. Keep in mind that the effective hit pool will be, you know, slightly inflated by a little bit because of this. You know, it's nothing like crazy, but yeah, keep that in mind. Runegraft of Time, it's 20% more damage basically, but I've accounted for, you know, maybe you miss some casts a VD or whatever, and it doesn't hit all the corpses or whatever, so I knocked it down from 20 to 15% more damage, and then the nerfs and all that stuff as well. Later on, sometime in here, there is a bug with cooldown recovery rate on the boot implicits, and it doesn't calculate properly in POB, so that's in here. And then at some points, you may also see that there is an attack speed fix like this. This is just because POB does not calculate for the fact that barrage support is smoothing out your volatile dead casts. So, like, you know, when you cast barrage, there's a million projectiles coming out. It's not accounting for each one of those projectiles attempting to cast Slinger. You'll almost never be able to mess up your trigger rate as long as you're using barrage support on your frenzy. But there is kind of a dead zone that you could hit. I have some information on that in the notes and the Discord if you would like to see that. So this is a day 1 character I put together to test out the build. We have a 1-stat wand, a 2-stat helmet, 3-stat shield, a really terrible chest piece, an okay ring gear, life res, a little bit of fire damage on there actually. Ring I threw 2 fire essences at. Okay pair of gloves, 1 C belt, and a decent pair of boots with crafted movement speed. So that's going to be it from me. If you like this video or if it helped you out, leave it a like, and if you want to see updates to this build and more builds I do in the future, subscribe now. If you see this video, chances are I'm live right now, and I'll be live every day during League Start, so if you have any questions, you can find me at twitch.tv/pathofky. Just going to leave a little bit of raw footage at the end here showcasing a full map in this day 1 gear character. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games.
Subscribe now and like the video.